Very excited to welcome back my next guest, Joe Hoft of the Gateway Pundit. Joe, how you doing?
Hey, great, Jason. Great to be here.
It's been a little while since we've spoken. You guys have been knocking it out of the park on this Hunter Biden laptop material. So much information coming out of that. People can go to thegatewaypundit.com to stay up on the latest. What can you tell us, Joe, has been coming lately?
Well, there's so much, Jason. It's really, it's almost scary how much we've got. There's a couple streams here on that laptop. One stream seems to be the financial and all the corrupt dealings between the Bidens and individuals around the world. But on the other side is this corrupt and very seedy dealings going on within the Biden family. And that's what's not really talked about a lot, but that is what is absolutely damning. If this stuff happened with the Trump family, we'd have an uproar. They'd be marching down the streets to go to Trump Tower to burn it down. That's how seedy this stuff is. It's really sick.
I mean, it's certainly a contrast. I find it difficult to imagine if photographs of Don Jr. or Eric Trump smoking crack, hanging around with their penis out, and young girls and sex videos and stuff. If that stuff happened, I feel like the next day we'd have a CNN video of those guys being frog marched out in handcuffs. And now, has Hunter Biden even made a public appearance or a statement about this?
Yeah, we don't know where Hunter is. I don't, nobody knows. It's just, it's just unbelievable what's going on here. I guess the media has done a horrible job of reporting, a great job of trying to cover up for the Bidens, and we don't know where he is. Who knows?
It's astounding. It's really astounding. Now, I mean, when the story first came out, there were some doubts, or I should say, some viewers of Crowdsource the Truth were feeling like this whole laptop repair store seemed a bit odd, but at the same time, certainly Hunter or Joe Biden would come forward with a press conference and would deny that it's his laptop, that it was brought to that store. They haven't done that. They've said it's Russian disinformation. Does that explanation even make sense?
Well, of course it doesn't. It's a joke. It's disgusting too. And as a matter of fact, you've got these pictures up here, Hunter with Joe, and they look like a couple decent guys. This one here with Hunter looks a little freaky. Joe looks a little freaky there as well. But the thing is, they really do no justice to the reality of the situation. Yeah. Hunter Biden is an animal. He's an animal. He is everything you would expect from an individual who is a drug addict, a massive drug addict, who's got massive amounts of money coming his way through corrupt means, and who's got no fear of ever being held accountable for any of his actions. And with those three things, drug addict, money, and no fear, you can only imagine what this guy's been up to over the last 30 years. I think the first episode we're aware of that he got in trouble for drugs was back when he was 18, and he's about 50 now. So, disgusting. Yeah, just amazing and here's the key. And this was our point on a post that we put up Monday, and it's related to the laptop, is that not only is Hunter just a seedy, sick individual and manipulative and just hurtful, narcissist, all those things that an addict becomes, selfish to the core, no concern for others. It's all about himself. Everything that an addict becomes, and yet the sick part of it, is and this happens in families with addiction. I'm aware that the family gets sick, but in this case, they weren't just sick; they were colluding to cover it up, and have been. And some of this stuff is really, really sick.
You're raising some points that cause me to think, because Joe, most people who have the unfortunate circumstance of drug addiction, usually running out of money, getting fired from their job, getting arrested. These are the types of turning points in people's lives that force them. You always hear an addict is really not going to change until they hit rock bottom. But you're right, I hadn't actually thought about that. The copious amounts of money and the virtual immunity from prosecution have enabled this guy. He's almost like become a super drug addict.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And with no barriers, this is what you get. And that's why I say this guy's an animal. And, at the same time, sure, people can, suggest he's a victim as well. He's a victim to addiction. He's been put in horrible situations by his father throughout the world in seedy affairs and seedy dealings with other companies and countries. I mean, all that's just totally disgusting. And what father would do that to their child? Joe gets on TV and pretends like he really cares about these children of his, and yet he hides Hunter and he put him in all these horrible situations. So really, what does that say ultimately about this candidate for the presidency?
I agree with you completely because, as depraved as he is, Hunter Biden is kind of a victim. I mean, at a very young age, he was in that car accident, lost his mother and his baby sister. That had to be, physical and emotional scarring. A responsible parent, I think, would potentially take a different approach to raising a child in that circumstance. Even in adulthood, when he's got the unfortunate circumstance of drug addiction, you can't put him in these situations. I blame Joe Biden much more than Hunter.
And an individual that wants to recover, that truly wants to find recovery, has to change. And they've got to stop doing things that are immoral, because addiction is a moral disease. It's as much as anything. It's physical and mental, emotional, but it's moral. And individuals that are in addictions, one of the major things they have to do is stop acting immorally. Start putting others and ahead of yourself. And he will never be able to find recovery as long as his dad continues to put him in situations that are damaging, that are immoral. And so as his dad does it, then he does it too. So he's a victim, but he's absolutely a perpetrator and an animal.
Yeah. I mean, sure, we could go down the rabbit hole of trying to psychoanalyze every criminal, but at the end of the day, when he's an adult, he is responsible for his actions. Everybody knows at this point that the story broke initially in the New York Post. And even more stunning than the horrendous, revelations from the evidence that's coming out of the laptop, the fact that the oldest newspaper in the United States with the fourth largest circulation was barred, completely blocked from sharing it on Twitter. And in yesterday's Senate hearing, we heard that Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg both confirmed that they have no evidence that this is Russian information or even disinformation, no evidence at all that it's anything other than true, but yet they blocked it. They continue to block it, and apparently Jack Dorsey lied to the Senate.
Yeah, well, they've lied before too. They've been lying about this for years. They've been downplaying their censorship and what they've been doing to conservatives. I mean, it's disgusting. That's a kind word for what they do with conservatives when compared to the Ayatollah or others. It's like these people are given a free platform to share their views, and yet a conservative in America that points out that a presidential candidate's son has done absolute disgusting things, that individual is going to be, or that company even is going to be shut down. I find Jack Dorsey just totally totally disgusting. He made the epitome of what it means to be one of these social monsters. The way he treats the president. I mean, here's the thing that we noticed a long time ago with Twitter, for example. Here's President Trump with some like 80 million followers or something. He's got to have one of the largest accounts ever, you know? And I know there's some celebrities with big accounts as well, bigger even. But here he's got 80 million, and when he tweets, rarely does he get more than 15. Sometimes it's even 50, it's capped at around 15,000 retweets that you can see, and another 15,000 likes or whatever. Rarely does he exceed 100,000. And the thing is, we've compared that to people like John Brennan during the Mueller sham. He had about 500,000 followers at the time. He'd
Wow.
tweet something, he'd get just as many retweets and just as many likes as the president with 80 million followers. So
Amazing.
you know it's grotesque what they're doing behind the scenes. My
Yeah.
theory, Jason, is that what they did after the election in 2016 was, and they were starting to do it before the election was over. Maybe we talked about this before, but they decided we've got to stop new media. You know, they didn't count on us. They didn't realize Gateway Pundit and Breitbart and InfoWars and sites like yours all combined led to this force of information that they weren't even aware of. Nobody was, and certainly the Republicans today are not aware of. We're a force.
Yep.
We're a power.
Yep.
And these guys decided to stop us. And they've, you know, you've seen Drudge get taken over. You've seen one by one sites get shut down. The Gateway Pundit had 30% of its hits before the 2016 election coming from Facebook.
Huh.
Somebody would share it on Facebook, it gets shared, and and that was a huge amount of volume coming to the Gateway Pundit. Today it's only 3%. Facebook shut us down. We've got statistics to show this, and Jim actually, who founded the Gateway Pundit, my twin brother, he went in front of Congress and spoke and shared on this. But rare was the person who was there to even listen.
Wow.
And, but so they've been hammering us. I think this is my theory too, I've shared with Jim. I think one thing that he did that was very salacious, and that might have, that was the time after the election when Jim was actually in the White House. In 2016, after that election, I think what they did is they started with the littlest and worked their way up. And I think a lot of these smaller sites, people that had 20, 30,000 followers or less, I think they targeted them first, because there was one girl, for example, I remember I was following her on Twitter, great wit, sharing great stuff. After the election, I don't get anything. I never see anything from this person. And she said the same to me, years later. So they've done that silently. There's been this silent coup of taking over the information that we are shared. Here's one thing we heard about before 2016. The Gateway Pundit, somebody told us, had twice as many Facebook shares as CNN.
Wow.
So that's how effective we were. Actually, it was mostly almost Jim, my brother, running the Gateway Pundit. And that was the impact that we had on that election. So they had to do something about it. And so they've just tried to shut us all down. Now they're getting so bold, they've worked their way up to the President of the United States.
Yeah.
And taking down his tweets. And like you said, one of the largest publications in the U.S. Never is it against a liberal, ever.
I thought it was astounding that when he was asked about specifically these tweets from the Ayatollah Khomeini denying the Holocaust, the Nazi extermination of Jews, Jack Dorsey said that could be misleading. Now listen, I support free speech for the Ayatollah Khomeini, or whoever, Ayatollah, whatever his name is these days. If this guy wants to present evidence that supports his belief, fine. Let him say the most outrageous thing. I think the only things you should not be allowed to do are things that are barred by law. You can't accuse people of crimes that they didn't do. And I don't agree with the Ayatollah Khomeini. I've seen a lot of evidence that there was a Holocaust and that the Nazis did exterminate massive numbers of Jewish people. But let the guy say whatever he wants. I thought it was amazing that Jack Dorsey said it may be misleading.
Yeah, well, and that's a good point, Jason. But I would share this, and this was something President Trump did in regards to U.S. corporations in dealing with China. He started to say, hey, you guys got to start making plans to move out of China. Yeah. Never has we had a president say that before. And what he was saying is, hey, you are an American company and you have the duty to support our country. You are an American company. You're not this worldwide. And if you're an American company, we expect you to support our policies and our government. And that isn't asking a lot. And I think with Twitter, for example, I don't think I would necessarily have a problem if they want to perhaps not permit or whatever it is, censor the Ayatollah. He's not an American citizen, he's not our friend. So if they want to do that, fine. But if we've got American citizens with rights that say, hey, this is my right to share my message, and you're stopping it, well, then I think we've got an issue, and we've certainly got an issue. These guys were not honest, and I've talked to Jim about this too. What do you do with somebody like this? Fine them? A couple $100,000? That's nothing.
No.
That's nothing to them. You can't fine them. So what are you going to do? Congress has to wake up, because I fear, Jason, and I tell you what, if we come back in a week and President Trump, is somehow, not reelected, we're going to be pissed at these Republican congressmen and
who've
women
done nothing.
that did nothing.
Yes.
While we've been out here screaming. And here's the problem, too, and it's within our industry in and of itself. When InfoWars gets attacked and shut down, nobody says anything. When the Gateway Pundit gets challenged, nobody says anything. Oh, you guys you're too extreme, or whatever the BS is, right? Now they've come for the Daily Caller. Now they come for the Federalist. And these people start screaming, oh, this is outrageous. They should have stood up at the time that InfoWars was attacked.
Absolutely.
It's BS that people like Alex Jones are being attacked day in and day out by these corrupt, dishonest individuals that run these big tech companies.
And
Congress
Alex Jones
should have woke up.
Yeah, Congress should have woken up. Alex Jones has been nothing but on the level and generous with me. I support him and InfoWars. He's been
absolutely
a real good guy every time I've dealt with him, and he's been nothing but maligned. They start with the conspiracy theorist thing, and they just...
And Alex he was more on to some of this stuff than anybody.
Absolutely.
Whether it be the Russia collusion, he knew it was BS, so did we, so did you.
Well, and Joe Rogan had him on the other day, and every time that he went to sort of, fact check Alex, turned out Alex was right. I mean, so much of what he says, look, nobody is right 100% of the time, but he's, I think, doing an excellent job. As you said, he's been delving into these things which basically are happening right before us in front of our eyes. We're all locked in our houses, First Amendment out the window, censorship from... See, it's the companies, right? Twitter has become this supranational thing that applies Chinese law, Pakistani Sharia law. A lot of people made the comment that Jack Dorsey was looking and even sounding in some of his comments to be more sympathetic to radical Islam than the values of the United States of America.
Yeah. If you were to put a picture of the head of Twitter, Google, and Facebook in front of us and said, these are the individuals who are going to determine what you can and cannot say. These are the individuals who believe that they have more integrity than you do, that they know better than you, that they are going to decide what you can and cannot share. We'd all freaking say, no way. I'm going somewhere else. You just look at them and they just, that's not who I'm going to follow. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? And don't force me to either. It's just disgusting. And it's cost a lot of money. These guys, here's the thing too, behind the scenes, these guys are working really hard to so not only did they censor the new media, not only did they shut down and knock people off their site who are too effective, but behind the scenes, they're working on the money angle. And they have individuals that will go out and contact sponsors and say, hey, you can't go with this guy. This guy's a racist, or this guy's a white nationalist. Or they will curtail the advertisers on the net. And I've heard Facebook and Google own about 80% of all advertisers on the net.
Wow.
So if they want to stop those advertisers going to your site, who are very profitable, who they make a ton of money off of, if they want to stop that, that's one way that they can really strangle you and take away your livelihood. And they're doing that. And Congress has no clue that this is happening. And they also have no clue how important we are to them. These people wouldn't be there if it wasn't for new media. And they certainly wouldn't be there if it wasn't for Donald Trump.
Absolutely true. It's a very troubling situation. I mean, I certainly never thought we would find ourselves in this position. There's a story that we had spoken about with John Cullen a while ago. We're talking about, kind of international companies and billionaires basically taking over the influence in the United States. They no longer need to infiltrate Congress. They can just buy stock in these companies. Gina Haspel actually went to Saudi Arabia to meet with the King Abdulaziz and talk to him about allegations of spying within Twitter. And basically, it seems the Saudis run Twitter. We know Al Walid had a huge investment there. How is this not a major national security concern? I mean, TikTok doesn't seem to be as big as Twitter, is it?
Yeah. Not that I'm aware of. And what is she even doing there?
I don't know.
That lady, I was talking to somebody this morning already, said, day after the election, she and Chris Wray and a few others need to be gone. We don't need to ever see them again,
Yeah.
If not in a court of law, being indicted for actions that are criminal while they've been in office, going against the Constitution.
Well, I'm hopeful that Congress will find some way to name at least Jack Dorsey personally as the CEO of Twitter, name him as a co-conspirator in the Biden crimes. And I have a feeling that the next CEO of Twitter, whoever it is, might tread a bit more carefully. But just taking you back to the Hunter Biden story for a minute, because you guys have been all over this thing. So we've heard about the business dealings with Anthony Bobolinsky and some of the evidence that he's brought forward, as well as these salacious photos. But it's where do you think this is really going to hit Hunter Biden? Will there be an indictment? Will Hunter Biden be charged?
I think he could be and possibly should be already. And that we brought this up in a post the other day. So we've come up with about 4 or 5 posts over the last week, which were absolute bombshells. The first one came out Saturday night, and that was actually a post where Cassandra, who works Fairbanks, who works for the Gateway Pundit, she put together a post where she reported that there were videos out on the internet now that came of Hunter Biden. Right, and that was Saturday night. We first saw that, and those videos were being published in an entity in Taiwan. I believe it was Taiwan, but in Asia, for sure. And so that was the big story Saturday night. Oh my God, look at these videos. They're just just like, oh my God. And so yeah. So anyways, is that one of our posts there?
It is. That's Cassandra.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, so this was kind of the stuff that was kind of trickling out last week. And then this week, we got a hold of some of that information. And so we dropped our first bomb really on Monday morning. And we announced Sunday night that we were coming out with this post. And it's a post. And it's in I sent you an email earlier. There was like 3 or 4 posts within the email, within the post. It's the top post of today. I went back and kind of attached the 3 prior posts to today's post. We've got that's our post today. And then if you go down, you'll see our first post that came out Monday. You can kind of see the first post Monday. So what we determined. Okay, so that was the post Saturday night. So that was the post that came out where they started showing some videos coming out of Hunter Biden's laptop. Yeah. That was Saturday night. Monday morning, we dropped some bombs of our own where we got a hold of some information. And what we found is that we found information, and they were text messages coming out of on Hunter Biden's laptop, where he is communicating with various individuals within this family and other individuals, even outside his family. Now, one was Jim Biden, Joe Biden's brother. One was a family friend, and perhaps there was one with another family member. Anyways, in these text messages, what we found is that not only was the family aware of Hunter's just being an animal, but they also knew that Hunter was being inappropriate with a certain minor. I'll just leave it at that, okay? That's how we've defined it. This person, a certain minor. So Hunter was inappropriate with a minor, and yet here's what we found. through these text messages, we found Jim Biden sending Hunter a message, hey, me and Joe, we really support you on this. We believe you, not the person who's accusing you of doing these terrible things. And then and so that tells us that Joe Biden was involved. And then there was another text where something similar was said, where they say, hey, Hunter, or somebody, either Hunter was repeating somebody or whatnot, but it was like, my mom, Jill, is sharing with Joe all this inappropriate stuff that Hunter Biden was doing. And so what we were able to piece together from these text messages, which we've included in the post, is that, it's this post here, is that Joe Biden was involved. And so was Jill Biden. And not only that, but this guy who wants to be president in a couple days not only was involved, but he and his wife were trying to cover it up. Mm-hmm. They were working to suppress this information from getting out. We don't see any information necessarily that says they were concerned about the minor. They're concerned about their image and Hunter's image. And that's the picture that we saw, that we tried to share. This is disgusting. This guy wants to be president, and this is what he thinks about members in his family. So it's shocking. I got to tell you, though, Jason, the new media, people want the truth. They want to come to sites like yours. They want to come to sites like the Gateway Pundit. It's because people want the truth. That post got like 1 million hits before noon.
Wow. So
it took off, and we're really grateful about that, because we want the world to know. Yeah. This Hunter's a creep, but his family's covering up for him.
It's so bizarre, because, I mean, this is the same crack-smoking, poor judgment guy who, after his brother, who seems to be perhaps the most respectable guy in the whole clan, unfortunately died of brain cancer, somehow Hunter thought it was a good idea to have a sexual relationship with his own sister-in-law. And there are children in that marriage on both sides, if I'm not mistaken. And some people might say, oh, well, this is family stuff, none of your business, and blah, 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 and maybe it's not technically illegal. I mean, it certainly speaks to the judgment, the morality of this family. I don't know if people are aware, Joe, that Beau and I think Haley Biden are on the board of this public charity, the Beau Biden Foundation for the Protection of Children. Now, I don't even know if a guy who has a crack problem should be on the board of a foundation that's intended to protect children. But certainly if he's doing inappropriate things in front of 14-year-olds, that would seem to fly in the face of this. I don't know if this has gone wide yet, but the other person who's on the board here is the Honorable Louis Freeh, the former FBI director who failed to investigate, in my opinion, properly investigate the death of Vince Foster. We can see right here, Haley Biden, Ashley Biden, Hunter Biden. So you're not supposed to have family members on the board of a public charity. Charles Ortel has taught me that. And I just find it so strange that Louis Freeh would be involved in this thing. I don't know who these other people are.
Yeah, just that. Too. That just sounds just so disgusting. You know what I think, Jason, is that there is a entire, what would I say, corrupt mega issue within the United States dealing with nonprofits.
Oh yeah.
That the Democrats are using these nonprofits illegally, like the Clinton Foundation, like you said. Charles can talk all day about the Clinton Foundation, or all week. And but it goes way beyond that. Act Blue, all these places that are set up as nonprofits, and this way they don't have to pay any taxes. They're not non-biased. They're all Democrat vehicles, and yet they're allowed. Again, shame on the Republicans for allowing this to happen. They're allowed to just flourish. Absolutely. So, pretty disgusting.
Well, and one of the aspects that people don't necessarily immediately realize is that when people are running these tax-exempt 501c3 corporations, they're not paying taxes, so a portion of their expenses are basically being covered by the American taxpayer. So when you look at organizations like the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences that give out the Emmys, why should we have to pay taxes and them not? Television is a profitable endeavor for everybody involved. And these guys, as you said, they get involved in political activity, which is a violation of the rules there. So you've been pretty close to the Giuliani team and to Steve Bannon and to some of the people that have been bringing this information out. What's the feeling over there with regard to whether this will lead to prosecution?
Well, I think right now nobody probably believes anything's going to lead to prosecution.
Wow.
Right now, don't you think? I mean, do you have any faith?
Yeah.
Do you have any faith that anything will happen? Not after what we've seen in the last 4 years. The only way we're going to have any faith is if they start to do something. And with Christopher Wray there, nothing's going to happen. We know that guy is he's just beyond disgusting. You know, you'd wonder what would you do if you ever saw some of these guys in public? you know, would you be the jerk that you see some of these lefties be? I mean, God, these guys are so corrupt and disgusting, you know. What would you do?
Yeah. So Christopher Wray, I mean, what do we know about the FBI's, let's say, official reason for sitting on this laptop? They've had it for over a year, and it took Rudy Giuliani and Gateway Pundit and Steve Bannon to let the world know.
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's just absolutely disgusting. And the fact that we heard that Christopher Wray, obviously he knew about this. You know he knew about this. And the fact that he never shared this with Trump during the impeachment hearing, which would have exonerated Trump, because it would have absolutely proven that the Bidens are as corrupt as hell and that President Trump had every reason in the world to ask the head of the Ukraine, you know, what's going on with the Bidens over there. And but no, Ray withheld that information. That guy's just disgusting. I'm so tired of these gross, disgusting FBI and DOJ people. I got to tell you, I heard this morning on Mornings with Maria, Scott Baio, I'm not sure. You know, good guy, Chachi from the Happy Days years ago. Still looks the same, just as handsome as can be. He was on fire this morning. He just says, I am so tired of this crap. The only way this is going to stop is if we absolutely blow these people away at the ballot box. Because we have got to send a message that we are not happy about this, and we want this no more. We want this stuff addressed. It's very clear that Biden will not address it. He is part of it. He is a big part of it. And that was the thing Rudy started saying last year during the impeachment. Bidens are as corrupt as the Clintons. And you start saying, no, how can that be possible?
Yeah.
You know, right?
Yes.
And now we're starting to see they're corrupt and they're sick. You know, they're just sick. There's something going on behind the scenes. So as Bannon and Rudy have been focusing on these legal issues and the financials within the Biden family, we've taken a different stream, and we're saying, hey, you got to look at this stuff too. So the first post we really had was Monday, where we brought up those text messages, which had not previously been released. Then on Tuesday, we brought up a post about Russia, the real Russia blackmail. And so from Russia with love there at the bottom, you just kind of passed it.
Oh, there
right
it is,
there. Yeah. So what we found is that on the laptop, there's information and evidence that Hunter Biden was out in Hollywood with some individuals. At least one of these women that was there had a Russian passport. And they partook in some very, very seedy sexual activities.
Wow.
And there's even a picture, at least, of one. There's another picture of Hunter in what looks like to be a jockstrap.
Oh, I saw that.
And a scarf. That came from our post. And so Hunter's out in Hollywood, no doubt getting high, with a bunch of people, at least one who we know is Russian. And we're saying, now, we went through 3.5 years, 4 years of make-believe Trump could be blackmailed by Russia. And yet here we have an absolute evidence of a potential, absolute potential Russian blackmail incident. And there were cameras all over this beautiful place in Hollywood.
Yeah.
You know, so we don't
Chateau
really know.
Marmont, I think.
What's that?
I think it was Chateau Marmont, right? That was his favorite place.
Oh, really? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's like
he's in a bungalow there. There's pictures of crack. But you're raising a really interesting point, Joe, because, you know, I voted for President Trump. I support President Trump. I'll be as upset as anybody if he doesn't win again. But when 2016, when the election was starting, I wasn't, just blindly dedicated to Trump. I became a Trump supporter when I started investigating some of these allegations against him and just found time and time again, they were always at least exaggerated, if not totally made up. Now, with regard to this Christopher Steele dossier, they're saying, ooh, explosive evidence from the British intelligence that Donald Trump has hired prostitutes to urinate on a bed. And why did we not see some 60 Minutes Moscow interview with Svetlana, the prostitute, saying, yeah, that was me? Why didn't we see the clerk from the hotel saying, look, I'm going to get fired, but this was so disgusting. Here's a video of Donald Trump. Here's the record book. No evidence whatsoever. And so many people believed it. And here, as you've been telling us, we've got tons of evidence, but yet still, there are sensible people, smart, educated people who I know who think this is a disinformation campaign. What does that make you think about the perception that the general public has?
Well, it's real disgusting. It's really due to this horrible, corrupt media. And I think it's even, there's been, you've heard the term color revolution over probably the last few months, et cetera. And that really hits it. It's not just they're lying. It's not just they're corrupt. It's beyond that. These people are trying to manage an image and get the American people to believe it. And they're doing that through social media. They're doing that through every media outlet, and they're preventing the truth from getting out. So today, greatest news in GDP in U.S. history this morning, 3 hours ago. Never have we come close to a 33% increase in GDP in a quarter, ever. It will never be broke. This record, never. In one quarter, 33% increase? Are you kidding me? And yet, there will be crickets from the media. On the other hand, anything can come up negative about President Trump, and they'll make a big deal out of it. And so it's really it's a scary time right now. That's why, really hope and pray that Trump can win this one, because there's a lot of people that believe this is our last chance. These guys take over this time, and it's over. So anyways, just so much. And then you start looking at who this Biden guy is. Not only is he just really getting very, senile, right? The guy makes a major gaffe every day. You watch him walking. Yesterday, Christina has done a great job with some posts at the Gateway Pundit. She's been following Biden, just looking at these videos of his events. Yesterday, he goes in to vote. He walks out of this facility, and he reaches and he grabs Jill Biden's arm. Grabs it like right there on the wrist, not on the hand, like holding her hand. He grabs her wrist. And it's because there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And it looks very much like somebody who's elderly, who's just beginning to fail. If you've had anybody in your life that's doing that, that's what's going on. So not only is this guy corrupted, but this media keeps to pretend like this guy's something that he's not. I'll tell you this, and maybe this will sound conspiratorial, and perhaps it is. When he gave his speech at the DNC, we don't really know if he did it there. We really don't. That whole thing could have been taped. All of a sudden, we saw him walking out of this facility looking like a weak old man, and you're like, is that the same guy who just gave this speech? What, was it live? They made it. Nobody said it wasn't. But
that does not sound conspiratorial at all. As a matter of fact, that sounds totally reasonable. I got a friend of mine who is an actor in L.A. who, when I was living in L.A., this guy had a successful career as a Tom Cruise impersonator. And sometime about a year ago, he got connected with a visual effects company that's heavily into the deep fakes. And so what they're doing is they're taking actual images of Tom Cruise, applying them to Evan Ferrante and his performance of Tom Cruise. And what you get is a very convincing video that he's doing comedy send-ups of Tom Cruise, because obviously his shtick is he's a Tom Cruise impersonator. But if you wanted to create a deep fake Joe Biden video, we've seen talented impersonators who can do these things. And we're living in a time where this is not science fiction. This is fact. You can do it on your phone, basically.
You're absolutely right. It's really scary times. And then once that gets down to the point where it's really believable, then we're really up. Then things are really going to be scary, unless we can get proper controls around all this. And right now, there's none. These
No.
guys are doing whatever they want, and so
I think
there's some major issues there, huge issues that need to be dealt with.
the only control that we can really rely on, Joe, I think, is for people who are reading Gateway Pundit and watching Crowdsource the Truth to really develop their own skills to question everything. I mean,
Yeah.
you do have to sort of predicate a statement like that by saying it's conspiratorial, because otherwise people will accuse us of being conspiracy theorists. But it's absolutely within the context of something that frankly could be easily done. And when we see the lengths that they'll go to cover these things up, you never know what they won't stop at anything. I mean, Adam Schiff comes right out and says, oh, it's Russian propaganda or whatever he said. Has he dialed that back at all?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't believe so. That guy's a big. I mean, really, if anybody trusts a word that comes out of his mouth, shame on you. That guy's so disgusting.
I understand why Trump calls him a watermelon head. He's looking redder than usual. We haven't heard too much about his incarcerated friend Ed Buck, who he allegedly spent time with and got a lot of campaign financing from. Ed Buck is another guy who's been accused of wild drug abuse and drugging other people and weird sexual escapades.
Yeah, it's really sick. And it's funny because here's this episode happened out in Hollywood with Hunter that we brought up with the Russians. So that's unique. I guess I'll kind of finish the stories here. The third post, I guess, was yesterday. And what we found out is, well, not only is there seedy pictures of Hunter Biden, just really pretty, just really disgusting pictures of Hunter Biden. This guy was so sick that he would film everything.
Right.
And take pictures of everything. And it was all on his laptop. And then he left the damn laptop.
Yeah, why would he do that? It's almost like he wanted to get caught.
Well, I think first of all, he's just a messed up drug addict. So his thinking's crazy. Yeah. But maybe he got advice that said, don't go back and get that thing.
Really?
You don't want people to think it was you. I don't know. Or maybe like you said, he's just totally, absolutely, without a doubt, incompetent and cannot be trusted. And actually there's, I'll get to that in a moment. I'll finish. I'll tell you about this story from yesterday. There are pictures of Hunter with a minor in the background. And and in one of the pictures, he's standing there with his Komodo wide open, exposing himself, and there's a minor in the background. And so we shared that yesterday. We obviously went to great lengths to protect the minor's identity. Right. But there is a minor in that picture as he's exposing himself. I mean, again, this guy here, that's the picture we should show next to Joe Biden. This is the real Hunter Biden. Yeah. This guy is a mess. He's just a mess.
One concern that I've had, we've got almost like two tracks that this story is going down. There's all the corruption and illegal business deals, failure to register with FARA, diverting multi-million dollars from international deals to companies controlled by Hunter Biden. That's sort of one piece. And I almost feel like, for me, in terms of getting to a prosecution, I'm not giving anybody advice. I'm just saying I think it's more important for the public to focus on that. The danger I see, and this is not in any way minimizing crimes to minors or sexual depravity or drug use, I just feel like that more salacious stuff runs the risk of being slotted into a category by the mainstream news, like the Comet Pizza place, where we even heard, what's her name, Savannah Guthrie, question President Trump at the town hall, asking him about the 17th letter of the alphabet and all this and that. It's almost like they create these entities, let's say the 17th letter of the alphabet. It's very similar to the Fair Play for Cuba committee, right? We've got Lee Harvey Oswald sitting there in New Orleans handing out these flyers, come to the meeting for the Fair Play for Cuba committee, And then the FBI goes to that meeting, and whoever shows up, that's who they're looking at. It's almost like a honeypot to attract people and then say, oh, look, see, that's stupid, that's a conspiracy theory, and you're a stupid conspiracy theorist for following it.
Yeah, well, there's a couple things there, and you've got some great points. But one thing that I've learned is that some of these things are real.
Yeah.
And they're absolutely correct. So for example, with Hunter Biden's laptop, many of these pictures are absolutely Hunter. Now, on the other hand, there's been a couple pieces that we've seen that have come out that are not on that laptop.
Uh-huh.
And so there's individuals that want to discredit the entire story by inserting information which is not correct, believable, but not correct.
Right.
And we've seen a couple incidences, I can think of one for sure, where there was a picture that was posted with somebody doing crack cocaine, and they said it was Hunter Biden or cocaine or some sort of drug on a woman's behind.
Right.
That was not Hunter Biden. Okay? But what happens is there are entities that want to insert this information. So then I believe, then they can later say, oh, that was all conspiratorial.
Right.
That wasn't even him.
Right.
But the bigger picture and the reality here is Hunter Biden had a laptop that's full of garbage. There's all sorts of information in there showing massive amounts of corruption, salacious, absolutely disgusting activities, blackmail activities, and that is real.
Yes.
Okay.
And you and I are in total agreement about this, Joe, because that's the tactic exactly right there. As soon as, I mean, look, there's a lot of things about, there's certain things that I'm not even wanting to say because it could risk the YouTube channel, and that's an amazing environment for us to be in, but they do exactly what you've just described. There's a real story with damning information. Rather than refute the information, they insert false information that is going to appeal to the people. You know, somebody who doesn't like Joe Biden and is convinced that Joe and Hunter and Jim are involved in all this corruption, you start throwing red meat to those masses and they're going to go crazy. And all you need is one fake thing in there. Somebody had an image of a credit card that was linked to one of the Obama children. Now, to me, that could be true, but also, can't you easily make a fake credit card with anybody's name on it and take a picture of it with powder on it and say it's something?
You're right.
It's really not evidence.
Until it can be confirmed. And we've got some information that we can confirm everything we put out. We've got some great tools to do that, and we're really blessed in that regard. So the post that we put up this morning, Jason, was to a long text that Tucker wrote to
a Hunter,
a friend, or the Hunter. Did I say Tucker? That Hunter wrote to a friend. And Tucker, by the way, has done a great job with the financials and that stuff. But, you know, I really wish they'd share this other stuff, because to me, it's just as important. As people went back, people were talking about Obama and his minister and all that. And I thought, that doesn't matter. That absolutely mattered. The kind of people that people hang with is very important to know, because that says a lot about a person. And in this case, the kind of people Hunter's hanging with are scary. And he's scary, and that picture shows it. But in his long diatribe to this family friend, he talked about all the stuff he's being accused of, and blah blah blah. It's the top post today at the Gateway Pundit, and what he says is, well, this one person is accusing me of walking around naked, watching porn, masturbating, and doing drugs. And he's writing this big, long diatribe to somebody outside, you know, the immediate family. And it's like, and it's long, and we've got it all there, and you can read it. And there's other sections. There's one section where an individual in the family grabbed his gun and threw it in the garbage. And the FBI, Secret Service, and police all got involved because they found a gun in the garbage. And they went to the Biden house because they found out it was his. And the person that threw it in the garbage had to say, well, I was afraid he was in danger to his own life and to the children's lives. But this never came up in any report. The FBI never wrote anything about that. And yet this is information that Hunter Biden himself wrote on his laptop in a message to a family friend.
And is he going to be, why are they meeting with Jack Dorsey? Why don't they just have a Senate hearing and be like, Hunter Biden, what the hell is up with you?
Yeah. Amen. Well, here's the thing that hit me. When they heard the other day that there are, well, here's the deal. Yesterday, when we put up those posts showing, or at least one picture of Hunter Biden with a minor, exposing himself, to me, that's a crime. First of all, having, that could be considered, I don't know if that alone could be considered child porn. I'm not an expert on the subject. But
Child endangerment.
You've got a child in that picture, and that's enough to go in. The police, why didn't they go get this guy? Of course we know why. Because he's a member of the chosen class. Nothing's going to happen to these guys. You know what I mean? Not with the current bunch of just criminals that are running the DOJ, et cetera. Yeah, there's a piece. If you go down a little bit, you'll see there's like 5 texts here, and we've got highlighted. Keep going down. She said, this is somebody.
Wow. She implies that I introduced her to drugs and that I created the addict she is today. She says, I don't work, that if I made money, I'd be happier.
Yeah.
She told people that I was sexually inappropriate with blank, and that's why I wasn't allowed in the house. My therapist. I mean, this is, you got to basically wonder.
It's a diatribe.
If somebody in a minority family that, remember Joe Biden told Charlemagne the God that if you don't vote for Joe Biden, you ain't black. I mean, anybody in the average American black family who was doing these things, smoking crack around minors and having guns in the garbage, they're going to get arrested and have a whole mess come to their lives. And these people who are going to be sitting in the White House making the laws that we all live by are doing some of the most insane crimes anybody can think of.
Yeah. Well, in child molestation. I mean, we've been hearing about this stuff for how many years? You're talking about, man, these people in these high positions that, everybody's just an object to them. And here's where they talk about, she stole the gun out of my truck and threw it in the trash. And the police and FBI and Secret Service came, and then she said that she was scared I would harm myself, or she was afraid for the kids.
Yeah.
It's like, that's pretty
due to my drug and alcohol problem. So he's admitting that he has a drug and alcohol problem.
Yeah.
I wonder if that alone is enough. I mean, again, we've got all these violations.
Why are these kids not, being protected? And here's the deal. Joe Biden knows. Joe knows. He's been working to keep this let's push this can of just massive, just disgust, whatever. Keep that on the lowdown because, man, we're running for president.
And then when Savannah Guthrie was questioning President Trump about this issue with the 17th letter of the alphabet, she positioned it in such a way that people who follow that believe that there is an elite group of pedophiles who are Satanists. And she sort of said it in a way as to make that sound ridiculous. But isn't it true that as recently as this week, we've found that the leader of a pretty depraved sex cult, I don't know if he's accused of being a Satanist, but this guy's into some pretty freaky, weirdo stuff. He's branding women. He's in jail now for 120 years. Jeffrey Epstein, of course, has been accused of trafficking children, raping children. Ghislaine Maxwell. So is it really such a far stretch to think that these people, being a Satanist, if you're going to, raping a child sounds way worse than being a Satanist to me.
But they go hand in hand, don't they?
Right. Right. Not a big leap. It's not like a child rapist is going to say, Satanists are terrible. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody said to me, probably, I hadn't thought of this before, but if the devil really, if there's a devil and the devil is really, really evil, and which is a belief, the fact that we're killing innocent babies would be the ultimate for the devil to be happy, and so It's pretty real. There's some sick stuff going on, and that's why we really we need to, we need to protect ourselves, and we need a good person in government that will help with that chore.
Yeah.
I want to tell you one thing before we go here. We've got a big post coming out, maybe later today, maybe in the morning. It's going to be big, and it's I'll tell you, it's related to Hunter, and it's tops all of those. It'll freaking blow you away. And
Really?
I don't want to give too much information. We've been working with some attorneys to make sure everything's on the up and up. And but that's coming out. I'm when as soon as I get off here, I'll find out when we're going to release it. Maybe this evening, maybe in the morning.
Well, people are
But
definitely going
just
to
more
keep
massive, disgusting corruption on the Bidens.
people are going to keep their eyes on thegatewaypundit.com to be on the lookout for that information coming out later today. One more thing, just on this satanic, pedophile accusation coming from Savannah Guthrie. It wasn't that long ago that in Little Rock, Arkansas, where a certain prominent Democrat is basically, he was the governor. I'm not saying he has anything to do with this, but the Satanic Temple in Little Rock, Arkansas, unveiled an 8-foot Baphomet statue at the Arkansas State Capitol. Now, Baphomet is an occult idol of some kind, a religious figure for Satanists, and he's pictured here with these young children. I believe it involves sacrifices and sexual rituals with children, but here it is openly in the public, and Savannah Guthrie would basically smear anyone who on the internet might be investigating this or looking into this or trying to bring the information forward. She thinks that's a bad thing to do. People should be tuning into whatever stupid channel she's on, I think NBC, listening to the lies that they're putting out.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully people are realizing this is garbage. And I think they are. Jason, one thing, in spite of all these headwinds that we've had to face at the Gateway Pundit over the last 4 years, Facebook, Twitter basically shutting us down, et cetera, we've doubled our volume this election as compared to last election. Wow. And, I told you last election we were twice as big as CNN and Facebook shares. So we're not getting the Facebook shares, but we're getting twice the volume. So we know our message is getting out there. And that's it. People want the truth. And so we got to keep sharing that truth and believe that the word will get out. And I think a lot of people are seeing, hey, these Bidens they're creepy, because there was after the debate the other night too, where there was this, something was trending where people were saying, how can I change my vote?
Yes.
So that's good news. We got to keep praying and working hard here.
Yeah, I think people are very worried that the mail-in ballots were a real radical shift and could have an impact. I want to remind people that they can follow you, Joe, on Twitter. You are at Joe Hoft, and that's a good way to keep up on your posts. They can also go to joehoft.com. And of course, the Gateway Pundit is the main site where people are going to see all the posts and information that you guys are dropping about this amazing Hunter Biden scandal. Here we see that he's jogging to the podium and screams at the parking lot. He's totally out of his mind.
That's what's so crazy. Here's the thing. The polls want to tell us. I was on an interview yesterday with some people in Italy, and they're saying, well, we're hearing the polls and blah, 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 Biden's way up. And I said, well, here's an example of what I can tell you. Yesterday, which was, I think would have been maybe Tuesday, Joe Biden's having an event down in Georgia. He had 2 events, had about 70 people total at these 2 events. The same day, Trump had events in 3 different states and 70,000 people. So there's our comparison: 70 to 70,000. You know what I mean?
I do.
And these polls are trying to tell us that Trump's behind. No, the only way Trump, in my opinion, the only way he loses is with massive corruption.
Yeah, and I'm definitely somewhat fearful of that. It really is astounding how they just constantly hammer people with this information that there's a polling lead for Joe Biden. I agree with you. It's so far beyond the point of being believable. There's virtually no enthusiasm. The other concern that I've got, Joe, is that I share your belief that Donald Trump is going to absolutely trounce Joe Biden, but I'm concerned about what might happen after that. We've seen so much violence in the streets already. Here in New York, the NYPD has been pretty ineffective, in my
Yeah. Oh,
opinion.
no, they've been totally ineffective. And your leaders are just horrible, horrible. What Cuomo did to those to the people in those homes, the older people, by shoving COVID patients in there was I think criminal. I think
I
at least
agree.
involuntary manslaughter. That
I
guy
agree.
was
One
disgusting.
One quick question before you go, because a lot of people have seen some of this material that's come out on this kind of unusual site,
Yeah.
GTV. Now, why are they saying, I mean, if anything, this seems like a Chinese site, but why
Yeah.
isn't the mainstream media, I mean, they're saying it's Russian hacking. Why didn't this come out on some Russian site if that's the case?
That's a good question. I hadn't thought of it that way. I think, you know what? I think the reason why some of the stuff's coming out on that site is because there's stuff in there with children, and nobody wants to get caught with that. Not in the U.S.
But how did the Chinese site even get it? I mean, it seems
I don't.
suggestive of Chinese hacking.
I think it's. I don't know if. I think it's a Taiwan. I think it's an anti
Ah,
China CCP site.
I see.
That's my belief. I think so. I thought I heard there was a. And don't quote me on this. Somebody can go and research this on their own. But I thought the guy who was running it was a anti CCP individual billionaire, maybe, that got out of China with some of his money.
It's a strange sight. And I mean, again, I get concerned when things like that are introduced, because the type of reporting that you guys are doing, and, certainly in the case of Tucker Carlson, he's very focused on, retired naval veterans who have impeccable records. This guy, Tony Bobulinski, came forward and said, forget about the laptop. I have verified evidence, emails on my phones. He showed the phones. He's ready to testify. I mean, that is about as solid of a witness as you could have. I don't understand why President Trump doesn't just fire Attorney General Barr, immediately appoint Rudy Giuliani as the interim Attorney General, and the next, like before lunch, just issue an indictment of Hunter Biden with this evidence and
Yeah.
start the grand jury testimony.
I think people are thinking, and they're giving him advice that politically that wouldn't go over well. So I think give him the day after the election.
I'd like to see that happen.
I think
Well,
so too.
Joe, thanks so much for joining me and for sharing your insights, all the work that you and your crew at thegatewaypundit.com are doing. People are going to check that out and make sure they stay on top of this. It's absolutely, in my view, we're at the very beginning of it, but this is the biggest political scandal in the history of the country.
Yeah, I agree. It's been going on for 4 or 5 years or
Well,
longer.
47 years, I would think,
Yeah.
and even longer than that. I want to thank
Yeah.
Joe Hoft for
Thanks.
joining me, and I want to remind people they can support this channel by going to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I cannot bring you great guests like Joe Hoft without your support and sponsorship, so please join us over there. Joe, we'll speak to you real soon.
Thanks so
very
much,
much.
Jason. Okay,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
watching, everybody.